Urgent Just Reaction. This is America's legendary Marine sniper Carlos Whitefeather Hathcock, Bachelor of Attrition. Yes, we saw the first portion of it, which was insane. It's been actually a long enough time. It's been like what, 1 or 2 weeks since I did the first part. Yeah, so the first part that I watched the half of it, chapter 5 total, right? Those were some insane thing. Like usually all the Federation videos when I see like, oh, that's insane, but this was like whole other level, especially that like shooting through the scope thing. That was straight out of Hollywood. Apparently Hollywood used that thing in one of their movies, I guess. Was that movie about this instance or they just used it? I don't know. But that was so good, right? Usually in real life, you don't see back and forth like that between some badasses. Usually that kind of thing happens only in Hollywood. But in this one, there was like back and forth between two snipers, which was awesome, right? And the end was so epic. I still remember it, like the end of the first part. Basically, if he didn't take a shot then, which implied that he was about to get shot, because both aligned each other, right? Both are aiming for each other's scopes. But that makes me think like, how does that work, right? If the let's say both are pointing like this and this is the scope, only way both can like aim each other's scope is like point a slide upwards. So that makes me think that maybe the guy who got shot didn't directly aim at him. He was about to when he got shot and he just happened to align, right? If barrel aligns with each other, it makes sense. But how did scope aligns like that if they are both looking at the same thing? Both are trying to look at the scope because, that's what they were seeing, right? Reflection and things. So only way, his bullet could go through the scope without touching the walls of the scope, direct, perfect, straight, is like he was about to like aim up and he got shot perfectly at the time. I don't know. But that was so awesome, right? The whole story is awesome. But then again, the video before this, I watched about the badass story, right? About the, fighter pilot. Again, people tell me in the comment, makes sense, like Daredevil style, fighter pilots usually don't survive. So it kind of makes sense. But he didn't survive in the story. So is he going to survive? Is Carlos Whitefeather going to survive? Because so far, he's the, core epitome of, like, I don't know how to say, trope of what people likes in video games and shit. Every time you play a video game, you want to have this sneaky badass sniper. That's what you do. You play Far Cry, you play like that. You do anything, you play like that. There's a whole game called Sniper, right? Sniper series, where you basically do that shit. This guy was doing in real life. He pioneered this shit. He and the commander, who basically both together, right? So it's going to be really interesting. Let's watch it.
That's because it's all complete BS. He made it up. He never made that shot. Even the great Mythbusters couldn't recreate this shot, and they tried repeatedly.
Great Mythbusters. I mean, if Mythbusters can do some shooting, no one else, some legendary sniper can do that, because they're Mythbusters. They're just better. They're just better.
Yeah, people have tried to recreate this shot. To the best of my knowledge, nobody's actually been successful at doing it, and it's probably because nobody's put forward a good effort. Even Mythbusters, with the Discovery Channel budget, managed to mess this up to the degree that it's atrocious. Okay, the first time they tried it, they shot it at a modern scope. Obviously not going to work right out of the gate.
Hold up, why don't I remember this? Is this the original Mythbusters, right? Not the newer one. Distinctly remember, I've watched a lot of, if not almost all of Mythbusters videos back then. There was a patch of time where I somehow like, I don't give a fuck, I just want to watch anything. Like, I was looking for like good source to binge watch. This is before binge watching was a thing apparently, because there was no streaming service back then, I'm pretty sure, right? This is from that time. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I watched a lot of it. Or it could be one of the last one they did when I didn't care much to watch or something, before they basically canceled the show.
It's doomed for failure because a modern scope has about 10 times as much shit inside of it, and there's no way you're going to be able to penetrate through it. Then they realized that they were shooting at a modern scope, so they got a Mosin Nagant period accurate scope, which is what Cobra would have had, and he should be able to penetrate through that scope way easier. Had they not been shooting at it with a 308 fucking hollow point round. Okay, if you don't know, a hollow point round is designed so it immediately expands and dumps all of its energy on impact, okay? You're trying to penetrate through something. Why would you fire a round designed to expand and dump its energy?
Why did they do that?
If I wanted to stab a motherfucker at a skating rink, do you think I'd have better success with an icicle or a snowball? Then, after that, they're like, oh, Well, you know what? We should actually try shooting at it with a 30-06 round, which is exactly what Hathcock would have been shooting. But
Because this whole episode would last 5 minutes. Oh, by the way, here's the setup. Here's a 3006 round. There you go. Oh, by the way, it works. Goodbye. They needed to stretch this shit out. That's what they're doing basically. I've seen that in Mythbusters. I'm like, you're going outside of common sense. First try that, and they try that in the end because it's the episode. They have to go through that shit.
the only gun that we can afford that's chambered in 30-06 on our Discovery Channel budget is some old M1 Grand, and we're also not going to put Full Metal Jacket regular plain old 30-06 rounds in it. We're going to use an armor-piercing round, so it's obviously going to work, and it's also going to cast doubt on the entire thing because there's a 0% chance that a sniper in Vietnam had access to armor-piercing ammunition. Okay, all you have to do to recreate this shot the right way so we can know for sure if this is even possible is get a Winchester Model 70, get a 30-06 Full Metal Jacket round, and get a 3X Mosin Nagant scope and shoot it through the scope and see what happens. And to the best of my knowledge, it's never, ever been done. Until now.
Oh yeah, he did the video. Okay, seriously, you can find guns in America. Asking like, Brandon Herrera, this channel. People find shit all the time. It's not that hard. Like if you Discovery Channel can't find certain things they want, like why can't you have the same setup? Is that really hard?
For this, I teamed up with my friend Nick Johnson over from the PewView channel. He's the best shot I know. If I know anybody that can get this done, it's gonna be him. But we didn't want to just capture this on camera. We're potentially proving history if we can get this done. We wanted to capture this on camera to the best quality the technology currently allows. And for that, we called up my other friends, Adam and
Caught in
Bryce from
4K?
the Ballistic High Speed channel, and they drove up from
Ballistic High
Indiana
Speed.
with their fancy-ass cameras, and we captured this shot at 100,000 frames per second. And Nick Johnson managed to do it on the first try. Not only did the bullet manage to penetrate all the way through the scope and into the head without touching the sides, just like Hathcock said, it also managed to push a significant
Okay, I don't get this. Like,
amount of the internals of the scope as well as powdered glass directly into the brain as well. It absolutely would have been fatal. We actually captured more.
I don't get this doubt. Even if you're like basics, if you're scientifically literate, even at basic level, you would know like, yeah, this can happen, right? It's a scope with two glasses aside, like simple Full Metal Jacket bullet 306. Yeah, it can penetrate. What's that hard? It can penetrate, right? And like I said, I think it was just like 1 in a billion time shot because if both are pointing at the same thing, looking at the same thing, the barrels, I guess, wouldn't match like that, right? If you shoot through the barrel, it makes sense. Like scope thing, I don't know. I don't know exactly how that works, right? All right. No, wait a minute. That's how scope works, right? It's supposed to like check for maybe both were looking at each other. I don't know. I'm out of my depth here when it comes to guns. But yeah, it can happen. If both are looking at this, if it's like like 1 in a million times shot, it can happen. How the fuck is that like one of those things? Like, oh, that didn't happen.
More angles of this shot and a bunch of more footage as to how we set everything up and how we got it done. And that's all going to be put together into a long form video over on PewView's channel, and he should be releasing it the same exact day that I released this. So after this video, you can go check his video out, and then hopefully after that, you'll go check out Adam and Bryce over at Ballistic High Speed. Their entire channel is stuffed just like this. So yeah, if a bunch of random dudes can come together on an afternoon in the middle of a cornfield and recreate this shot on the first try, not only is it plausible, it's absolutely probable that Carlos Hathcock, the winner of the Wimbledon Cup and one of the greatest snipers ever, managed to do it in real life.
The guy was shooting birds and God knows what in the jungle with a BB gun. He can't shoot it? Come on.
Also, not trying to brag or toot my own horn too much, but I only bothered tracking down and buying one Mosin Nagant scope because I was that confident we were going to get this done on the very first try. Yeah, babe.
What are all these
Darth
telescopes
Vader.
doing on my counter?
I just take them to Kohl's and return them. I don't need them anymore. Yeah, you have horrible timing. Love you.
Okay.
Bye. So for Carlos's next adventure, it's not really an adventure. He ends up getting stuck on Hill 55 doing a bunch of Overwatch duty. Basically, he's up on top of Hill 55, which is kind of right by the Ho Chi Minh Trail. If enemies walk by, he shoots at them. The problem is, by this point, Hill 55 has been occupied by snipers for months, and the Viet Cong have kind of figured out that that particular hill is a little bit spicier than the other ones, and they can put accurate fire out a lot further than most other hills could. So they just stay extra far away from it, which, to be fair, brilliant plan. That's exactly what I would do. So Overwatch duty duty, kind of boring. Carlos Hathcock is just kind of sitting up there. He can see these bad guys way off in the distance, right? They're on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, they're smuggling stuff, they're doing recon on the hill, whatever they're up to. He just doesn't have a gun that's both accurate and powerful enough to reach out there and do something about it. So then one day, a couple of Seabees show up and they're building something for Hill 55, and Carlos goes over to the Seabees, because I mean, let's face it, the Seabees can build just about anything with virtually nothing. And he's like, hey, I need you guys to build me a mount for an M250 cal so I can just pop the scope off of my Winchester, throw it on the 50 cal, zero it, and then I have a longer ranged weapon for when I'm on Overwatch duty on top of the hill. And the Seabees are like, sure, no problem. Here you go. Made it for him right away. So now every time Carlos shows up to Overwatch, he pops the scope off of his Winchester, mounts it onto the M250 cal, and then he just has to zero it to the 50 cal. And he does that by shooting at a rock 2,500 yards away. And he knows he's zeroed enough when he can hit the same rock 3 times. Don't get me wrong, it's a big ass rock. It's more like a boulder. And just to be clear, so we're all on the same page, the 50 cal is definitely more accurate with a scope, but it's also definitely not a precision sniper rifle by any means. When you're shooting out to crazy distances like 2,500 yards, the quality of the gun and the quality of the ammunition really start to matter. If I did the math right, a 50 caliber...
There's a reason why 50 cal sniper rifles are made in a way, right? Even Brendan, when he made AK-50, kind of looks like, what is that, like M1A2, right? The 50 cal sniper rifle, because it has to, right? You can't rewrite laws of physics. So if you're like machine gun that is supposed to shoot 50 cal faster, accuracy is going to be harder. Even video games captures this shit. Right nowadays, video games engines are becoming really calculated and strong. If you try to like aim something, you like with a really good game. I'm pretty sure even GTA 5 has that kind of quality. I don't know if people really notice it. I remember like, oh fuck me, like guns are this accurate. But you know, if you're accurately shown, right? So if you like shoot like that, it's not gonna hit the same way, right? So yeah, makes sense. But this dude, 250 yards from a 50 cal machine guns, like shooting the same boulder, like even from 250 yards, a boulder is still like, yeah, sure, it's big, but it's not that big, right?
BMG round traveling out of an M250 caliber Medusa at 2,500 yards. Even if Carlos shot perfect, that round could still wind up anywhere within a 6-foot diameter of where he was actually aiming, and none of that would be on him. It's literally just the variability between the weapons platform and the ammunition. Obviously, Carlos Hathcock knows this, but it's still going to be a lot of fun because he was just sitting up there bored, unable to do anything, and now he's at least going to be able to scare the shit out of people. So that's what happens. Every time Carlos shows up for Overwatch duty, he pops the scope off of his Winchester, mounts it onto the M250 caliber, and then he zeroes it on a boulder 2,500 yards away just to get it as close as humanly possible. Then one day on Overwatch duty, Hathcock's just scanning the perimeter, doing his normal thing, and he stops cold in his tracks. He's like, there's no way this is happening. And he motions over, LT, get over here. Get on the spotting scope. Look at this. LT gets on the spotting scope. He's like, okay, what am I looking at? And he's like, you see that dude, the scout with the binoculars, 2,500 yards out there? Not seeing him. He's like, he's literally sitting on a rock. Which rock is he sitting on? The one with all the bullet marks on it that I use to zero this gun every day is the rock that he's sitting on. The Misfortune.
Is it Misfortune? Is that the guy flexing? It's like, screw you, you're not that accurate. I've seen you shoot at this rock, you're not gonna kill me. Trying to flex? Could be one of those things.
Of this man is palpable. The LT sees him and is like, holy shit. Carlos Hathcock fires. Okay, here's the thing with this. Shooting an M250 cal at 2,500 yards, if
LT's probably, wait a minute, let me get my binoculars. Okay, now shoot it.
I did this math right, that's going to take like 2.8 seconds for that round to get there, okay? That's almost 3 whole Mississippi. 3 Mississippi after firing a round.
2.8, so shoot. Now, you hear it there and just like, even hearing has a delay, but yeah, it's like, it would be like second, it's enough to like jump anywhere, right? I don't know, something, move or something. But then again, people do get surprised. But if he gets surprised, how would he get surprised? I don't believe that he didn't know. Like, if you see big 50 cal holes in a rock, you know somebody's shooting here. Doesn't matter who you are, even if you like some idiot. He's a scout at least. He should know that. I think he was trying to flex, like you're not going to be able to shoot me or something. I don't know, some shit like that. Even though there are bullet holes on the rock. He probably just assumed he just sprayed and prayed and got the bullet holes. Maybe he knows it's the same guy, right? His white feather and he's trying to flex or something. I don't know.
round is like 3 minutes in the bedroom. It's basically an eternity. As they're watching in their scopes, the milliseconds are going by like hours. And this dude way out there on the rock apparently got done looking at whatever he was looking at and goes to stand up. At this point, Carlos is like, I missed. There's no way I'm gonna hit this. And as soon as he stands up completely, he catches this round directly in the head.
Deep center field. Pilar racing back, getting to the wall. He jumps and he makes the catch.
So if he didn't stood up, he wouldn't get shot. Oh, this is too much. This is like, the world wanted him dead or something.
That was awesome.
And this is actually the world record for the longest distance confirmed kill in combat from 1967 until it was broken in 2002. It took almost 40 years of technological advancement and a sniper shooting an actual big-ass, hopped-up, modern-day sniper rifle, and he only beat Carlos Hathcock's record by 30 yards. Now, to be completely fair, as I've kind of already explained, there was a fair amount of luck involved in him actually landing this shot, and he is the first person to actually admit that in his interviews. However, getting lucky is also kind of a skill, and Carlos Hathcock just doesn't miss.
And if he hadn't stood up, I'd have went over his head. But, as luck would have it, he stood up. He caught that chunk of lead.
Nobody has played Fallout. Luck is a skill. It's special. It's L in special, right? If you put 10 in there, you get lucky all the time. He basically a 10 stat in that one, because that's, shoot through scope, and now the guy is standing up and getting a headshot from a 50 cal M2 machine gun at that distance. This feels like video game.
Carlos' stint doing Overwatch duty on Hill 55 would finally be broken when the Viet Cong sent out a group of counter snipers to attack Hill 55, and Carlos in particular. As they continued to have interactions with this counter sniper unit, the snipers on Hill 55 came to figure out that there was about 5 men being led by a highly trained female counter sniper known as Apache. There was no women in combat roles during Vietnam, and they definitely would have been in a role as prestigious as a leader of a sniper crew. Maybe. Let's give it the 2-second Google test. Women in Viet Cong. Several million Vietnamese women served in the military and in the militias during the war, both for the North and the South of Vietnam. So women absolutely did find their way into combat during the Vietnam War. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they were a highly trained sniper, so let's examine that more closely. The Vietnam War is essentially America versus...
Yeah, it's sexist much. Like anybody who says that, like, okay, I get it, historical elements of like every other war, no women there, world wars and shit like that, sure. But Vietnam, like their country was under attack, even women was fighting there. I can see them becoming like sniper, whatever, elite type of way, right? It's a skill in its own, so yeah, why not? I can see that.
Versus guerrilla fighters known as the Viet Cong, and the Viet Cong are being backed by the NVA, the North Vietnamese Army, and the North Vietnamese Army is being backed by the USSR. So since the USSR is advising them, training them, and supplying them, the question becomes, would the USSR ever consider training and utilizing female snipers? Not only would they, they're literally the most famous people on the planet for doing it. In 1942, the USSR started a female-only sniper school because they believed that females excelled at the job of being a sniper. They believed that women were exceptionally...
Where you can give like communism in concept is like about the people, right? So even if they go through by their concept, they're not going to discriminate against women like, oh, women can't do that. Yeah, maybe they can do sniper. Let's try that out. It makes sense, right? And if them training it, I'm guessing these same women who were like excelling and probably is going to have like veteran sniper women there in the USSR, they would train this, Viet Cong females and things like that to, become great at sniping. It just makes sense.
Good at this because people always underestimate women and don't see them as a threat. They were easier to conceal because they had smaller stature. They exhibited a greater pain tolerance. They were more patient, and they were easier to teach.
There's literally a trait in Fallout called Black Widow. I'm pretty sure Black Widow or something like that, right? Who basically is implied, if you see the image of that trait, it's implied that women smooth talk into killing, male or something. Implying that James Bond type shit, right? Somebody lures them because they don't see women as threat and then kills them type of shit. That's what that trait literally means.
because they didn't have as big of an ego. And you know what? There's a solid argument they were right, because a lot of the women that came out of that program ended up being some of the most successful snipers in human history. Literally, the Lady of Death, Ludmila Pavlichenko, who has 309 confirmed kills, came out of this program. And there's a ton more that have kill counts in the 2 and even 3-digit range.
Probably thinking, what? This is crazy.
Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Apache and her crew decide that the best way to try to take out the snipers on Hill 55 is to go around.
I don't know what's more fucked up. The fat reason has to sit here and give like a proper history lesson and like just to explain origins because people are questioning the story rather than tell a story. I think that's more fucked up, right? He's been doing that the whole video. Okay, let's give context. How is this possible? Because people are questioning every fucking thing of this story, right? I understand that, but you know, people collaborate and it's like, it's not that far-fetched. Any story can be wrong. You weren't there. Anything that you don't see through your eyes, even your eyes can deceive you. So like, what you gonna believe in the end? If there is enough evidence, right? In this today's world where everybody's lying, everything's fake. No, NASA's lying, everybody's lying, world is flat. Like, you can't really appeal to people. After some time, if you can't be communicated with, if you're gonna say no to everything, there's no point to talking, right? I guess.
To the local villages, capturing South Vietnamese that they believe are aiding the Americans on Hill 55. And they capture them, and then at night they get them within earshot of the hill and torture them to death so that the Marines can hear their screams at night. And this is going on every night for like 2 weeks straight. The Marines are pissed, they're distraught, they don't know what to do because they know it's a trap. Okay, she has her whole crew set up with sniper.
Again, this is like 80s and 90s Schwarzenegger movie, Hollywood shit type of thing. I guess that's where they get inspiration from. I don't know, that's why Hollywood was like that. But 2 weeks, screams and things they're hearing, like, imagine that real life. That's real life. You're there, you're on duty, you hear that screams for 2 weeks. They're trying to bait you and like, people are getting tortured. Like, that's insane.
Positions trained on her, and if they go in and find her and track her down, they're going to be walking face first into a trap. There's literally nothing they can do because she only comes out and does this at night. And they never know where she's going to be doing it because she does it in a different spot every single night. The only thing the Marines can do is go out the next morning, find the remains of her latest victim, and clean that up. And one day, Carlos is on the detail to go out and collect those remains and get everything taken care of. But today, it wasn't a North Vietnamese soldier or somebody helping out the Americans. It was a Marine. Seeing the remains of this young Marine that's been tortured to death, Carlos has never been so mad in his entire life. He goes back to Hill 55, gets his shit, gets ready, goes to Jim Land, tells him, I'm gonna go kill this bitch. To which Jim Land says, I'm coming with you, and they go out together. So Carlos Hathcock and Jim Land set out to stalk Apache. They have no idea where she's gonna be next, but they do know where she's been most recently and the sites she hasn't been to for a while. So they go to one of the sites she's about due to visit and set up a hide. They're there all day, just scanning everywhere with the scope of their rifle and with their spotting scope. They're taking turns back and forth on who's on the rifle, who's on the spotting scope, because being in the prone firing position is absolutely exhausting. Carlos has just been in the prone for about an hour, and he goes to hand the rifle to Jim, and right as he hands the rifle to him, they both have a hand on it. Apache and 3 of her snipers appear off in the distance. Both Carlos and Jim tense up, not wanting to let go of the rifle because both of them want to take this shot because it's personal. This little tug of war ends up alerting Apache, and she disappears and the shot's gone. Both.
The fuck? Wait a minute, Jim Land, that's his commander, right? He could just say that, I order you, let go of the fucking rifle. He's like, I'm a white feather. See this feather? I'm known. I'm famous here, right? You can't do this shit without me, right? I'm the MVP of this shit.
Both Jim Land and Carlos Hathcock are embarrassed. Now Apache knows they're out there hunting her, but that's what she's wanted all along, so they know that she's going to come and try to outsnipe them. So they're going to remove to a different hide where they're going to have a look at their current hide and the area around it and try to spot her when she comes.
I'm not gonna lie. Okay, that would be stupid. But if I'm a white feather, right, and if I know like she knows where I am and I'm not basically trying to like outsnipe each other, I'll just scream, white feather here, white feather is here, you bitch. I'll just scream like that.
For them. So they get their new hide set up, and they're waiting all day. They're scanning and they're waiting, and somewhere along the line, Jim Land calls into the artillery guys and gets them set up with the exact coordinates of this entire area. That way, if they do show up, he's at least going to cover this place with artillery shells and try to take him out that way. And they keep waiting all day long, and then right at dusk, as the sun is about to go down completely, they see 5 shadowy figures off in the distance of the wood line sneaking around. But they're not sure it's them yet, so they just continue to watch, and then this crew starts stalking around, going around the old location where Hathcock and Land were. So this has
Wait a minute, so that movie is about this instance? That's at least something, right? Hollywood actually made a movie about this.
to be them. So they're waiting for a good shot, and then one of the figures steps off to the side and squats down to do something. Maybe they're tying their shoe, maybe they gotta check the map, something. But Jim Land takes this opportunity to radio in and start dropping artillery on that location. The first artillery shell lands literally seconds later. These Marines had this dialed in so close already. And as the first shell lands, that shadowy figure is still squatting down, and Carlos realizes that's got to be Apache, and she's squatting down to take a piss. Carlos realizes this the second the first artillery round hits, and when that happens, Apache stands up and starts sprinting away. Carlos follows her with his crosshairs, gets a bead on her as she continues to run, and he fires. She collapses. Carlos immediately reloads the bolt on his Winchester and fires again into her body as it lies lifeless on the ground. 3 of the other figures have been taken down by the artillery, and there's now just one man running away. Carlos immediately shifts over and fires on him, dropping him as well. After the artillery barrage stopped, there was eerie silence as Carlos and Jim Land approached their corpses. They ended up recovering Apache's sniper log, proving that it was her. Later in life, Carlos said that his first shot at Apache when she was running at a full sprint while artillery was going off all around him at dusk was the best shot he's ever made, and the most personal one.
The guy in front of her was trying to get her to stop because they were running right towards us where they'd seen us before. He trying to get her to stop. She didn't, but I stopped her. And I put on one extra for good measure, because that was the best shot I ever made, I think.
I mean, it makes sense if something's running and moving that way, and if you're a sniper, that's like an insanely hard shot, right? So that would be, and it was personal, right? Man, this is some insane. Okay, first of all, if it's logged, Jim Land was there, it's proper official. Why were they question like if she even existed or if she was a woman or not? Was Apache a woman? Like they recovered something from her body, confirmed it. That's an official record, isn't it? After that, like you're gonna question everything. Like you're not gonna believe anything, right? So why Frenchman has to give like reasons like how would she be female or not? People question everything. People even question like official records at the point. Like, what do you want? Videographic proof now?
So Carlos Hathcock, Jim Land, and John Burke are all back on Hill 55. Things are kind of starting to slow down. I mean, they're still going out on missions, they're still doing Overwatch duty, but they're not having run-ins with any more main characters, you know, people with nicknames and prowess. It's just your typical anonymous bad guys, your Homer Hamburger.
I was about to say that. What is it like? What is the game like? Lord of the Ring games, right? Mordor or something, where you fight enemy and they're like named enemies. They come back to revenge on you, some shit. But what is this? This is real life. He's constantly like, okay, what is this? Everyday fight? No, we against named NPC now. Oh, okay. So it's gonna be something, some boss fight now.
Type situations. Now, Carlos has been in theater for about 11 months. Remember, the first 4 was him being an MP guarding the front gate to a base, but the other 7 months have been pretty fast-paced and non-stop the entire time. So in the next month or 2, he should be heading back home to see his wife Josephine, and he's ready for it. He's tired. He's been through an awful lot. At this point, he has about 86 confirmed kills and hundreds of probables that can't be confirmed because there wasn't an officer present to witness it. Then one day, out of the blue on Hill 55, a bunch of Force Recon Marines show up, but they're not acting like your normal Force Recon Marines. These guys show up, there's no pleasantries, there's no hi, how are you, there's no introductions, my name's so-and-so, I'm from this unit, that, nothing. They show up and are like, are you Carlos Hathcock? And he's like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, we need the best sniper around to go on a mission. I can't tell you what it is. I just need to know if you want to do it. This entire situation is weird. Carlos is thinking these guys got to be working for the CIA or some special operation that nobody knows about. Either way, he comes to the conclusion he has to be the one to go out on this mission because they're looking for the best sniper for a reason. Clearly, it's got to be extremely dangerous.
Is this sabotage? Like something's happening?
And Carlos realizes that if he says no, they're just going to go to the next best guy. And if that next best guy isn't good enough to pull this off, Carlos is going to spend the rest of his life wondering that if he'd have gone on this mission, maybe that guy would still be alive. So Carlos agrees to do it. So they pull him in, they brief him on this mission.
Same mentality that the fighter pilot had, right? Like that story before, right? If I don't do it, somebody else will do it wrong or somebody will die type of shit.
And basically, there's this man that they call the Frenchman that these Force Recon Marines have been stalking for months. Apparently, after the French left Vietnam and America took over the theater, this guy stayed for some reason, and he is now helping to run guns between the USSR and the Viet Cong. This group of guys, whether they're Force Recon Marines or CIA or whatever they are, have apparently been watching this guy for months, and this guy never leaves this French villa compound that he lives in. The problem is, they don't know how to get in there and take him out. If they bomb the compound and he's got some type of bomb shelter in there that they don't know about and he ends up surviving, he's going to bounce and he's going to be gone forever, and they can't have that. They also can't send in a small team to take him out because this guy has a ton of security patrolling around this compound 24/7 all day, every day. The only time they ever actually get visual confirmation that this guy is inside the compound is when he actually shows up to the front gate to meet with the Viet Cong that are either dropping off or picking up weapons because he doesn't like them coming inside the compound, so he at least shows his face at the gate. So their thought is if they can get a sniper to take him out when he goes to the gate to meet the Viet Cong, that's going to be the best way to guarantee that this guy dies. But the problem with that is this villa is out in the middle of a grass field for like 800 yards in every single direction, meaning that the closest they're going to be able to get for a sniper is 800 yards away, which is really pushing the limits of what a sniper at this point in time can do, and they don't have anybody with them that can make that shot guaranteed. And this is where Carlos Hathcock comes in. So they give Carlos a topographical map. They tell him, here's the locations that we can insert you with a helicopter. Here's the places that we can extract you. Here's the villa. You pick where you want to line up your shot. However you want to get this done, you tell us. We'll make it happen. Carlos is examining.
Okay, they're finally making a Spec Ops style game here, right? Video games mission. Oh, this is super secret missions. Here's your target. Here's your extraction point. There you go. Metal Gear Solid or some shit like that. Basically, every single trope that we know of in video games today. There you go. Even in GTA, you try to find missions like that. Oh, that would be fun.
This map, he identifies a good spot that he thinks he's going to be able to get this shot off at the front gate. It's about 800 yards away from the gate. From there, they figure the entry point with the helicopter, the extraction point, they get the whole plan laid out. Him and John Burke are going in the very next morning. That night, Carlos spends quite a while memorizing the entire topographical map. He's going to know exactly where they're getting dropped off, exactly all the terrain features in the area that he needs to be able to identify to know where he's going, and exactly how to get from the point he takes a shot back to their extraction point and get out. He doesn't even need to bring the map with him because it is burned into his memory. Very next morning, Hathcock and Burke jump inside this helicopter. They get flown in, they get inserted, they get dropped off, helicopter takes off. These guys start sneaking their way through this wood line, making their way to where they got to line up this shot. It takes them a couple hours, but they finally make their way up to this big dirt mound right on the edge of the wood line. They get set up, they get their shots lined up, they're looking right at the front of this gate. There's patrols going around, but these guys are 800 yards away from this front gate. They're fine. They're just waiting, watching, and observing all day long, watching for hours and hours and hours. Sure enough, a convoy of cars comes rolling up the road towards this gate. They stop at the gate, a bunch of dudes get out, it's the Viet Cong, and they're waiting at the gate, and sure enough, this massive French guy comes walking out in a white button-up shirt. This dude's well over 6 feet tall. At this point, Carlos is thinking, you know, this is an 800-yard shot. We're really pushing the limits of when I can guarantee I'm going to hit, but this guy's doing everything he can to make it easy for me, wearing that nice white button-up shirt. He literally looks like a silhouette paper target that he's used to shooting back home at the range.
What if there was some kind of a round and dot design just to pinpoint, take the shot here?
Not only that, but because he's so tall, he is head and shoulders above all these Viet Cong guys. And as soon as he stops walking around and stops to talk at the guy in charge, Carlos lines up his shot, takes it, and just folds the guy in half. One shot, one kill. Hathcock and Burke slide down the reverse side of the mound and start making their way back to the extraction point. The Viet Cong and the guards have no idea what just happened. They don't even know where the shot came from. They're panicked, freaking out, running around. And Carlos and Burke make their getaway back to the helicopter, get picked up, get flown back to Hill 55, get dropped off, and they're like, cool, thanks, get the fuck out of my helicopter, and just ditch them. So now Hathcock and Burke are back at the hill like, this is a weird day. Like, they didn't say thank you, they didn't debrief him, nothing. They just...
Imagine that shit, right? Oh god, this is so intense. Imagine that. You're gonna do this, you're gonna do this. You memorize all day, you go there. Oh, there's the target. Is there any problems? Oh, no, there's no problem. He's tall. He's wearing white. Oh, look, I took the shot. Walking away. Everybody's panicking. Background is just like walking back to extraction. No issue. Helicopter literally picks up, drop you off, and they fuck off. Again, how many times do that? This feels like video game. Like none of the exaggerated thing. None of like post briefing type of shit. Nobody's talking. Nobody's giving commendation. It's just, oh, thank you. Like, okay, fuck off. Do other side quest now. Go on. Get out of here. That is insane.
Asked if the dude's dead. Carlos is like, yep, he's dead. They dropped him off, and that was the end of it. There's no like, we'll be in touch, we'll talk to you soon. Carlos doesn't even know any of these guys' names. They just dropped him off and bounced.
What the hell just happened?
Now, Carlos doesn't know this at the time, and honestly, he may have never found out because the government didn't even admit that this existed until the late 1990s. but everything about this sounds like Mac v. SOG. If you don't know, at this point in time during Vietnam, America has this ultra secret special forces group known as Mac v. SOG, and it is comprised of the very best Army Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and Force Recon Marines available, and their job is to covertly go into neutral territories like Cambodia and Laos because...
Oh, it surprised me. Why didn't they try to recruit him though? Right? Like, okay, I see properties where we would need you. Let's just, okay, we need you. Let's go type of shit. I guess they probably talked to Jim Land and he's like, nah, I'm not giving you him, right? We need him, some shit like that. So then, okay, let's just for a mission then.
As the North Vietnamese army is using these neutral countries to smuggle supplies all the way down deep into South Vietnam. So they are going into Cambodia and Laos as well in small man teams trying to stop them. Now, to be completely fair and intellectually honest, I can't prove this, but everything adds up. And I think that Carlos Hathcock just got picked up by some Mac v. SOG guys, flown into either Laos or Cambodia without him even knowing, conducted a covert operation inside of a neutral country to help stop the supply chain of supplies getting funneled into South Vietnam to help the Viet Cong. The time period, location, and mission set lines up exactly with what Mac v. SOG was doing at the time, and this would explain why they were so secretive and didn't tell Carlos what exactly he was doing or where he was doing it. Back home on Hill 55, some time passes and everything's just regular. It's normal. Wake up, go to battle with Homer Hamburger, go to bed, repeat. This goes on for about a month, and then, sure enough, the Recon Marine / CIA / Mac v. SOG, whatever the fuck these guys are, they show back up again, asking for Carlos Hathcock. Pretty much the same exact thing happens. No pleasantries, no hi, how are yous, no introductions, doesn't know anybody's name, just, hey, we got a dangerous mission, you're the best man for the job, do you want it or not? And at this point, Carlos Hathcock is 3 weeks away from going home to his wife, Josephine. Absolutely nobody would blame him if he did not want to go out on this top secret.
Is it going to be just like last time? We go there in a day, you drop me off and like nobody knows anyone and I go home? Okay, I guess I can do some side quest.
Extremely dangerous mission with this weird special forces group that nobody knows who they are. But again, Carlos knows that if he doesn't accept this mission, they're just going to go to the next guy, and that guy isn't as good as Carlos Hathcock, and he just can't live with that. Carlos accepts the mission. Okay, they take him in, they brief him on what's going on. It's basically the exact same mission as when he killed the Frenchman, except now it's even harder. This time it's an NVA general. He's living inside of this French villa that's kind of tucked up right by the wood line.
He's playing Hitman as side quest. What is this story, man? It's like when you remember when you play GTA and like stock market missions, but you can, like, if you do it right, you can get rich from that. I'm pretty sure you remember that. And you do certain assassination missions because of the stock market to basically do that shit. This feels like that, one of the side quests of the main story. Like, fuck it, I guess you're doing assassinations now. There you go. You're great sniper, right? Might as well do it. Hitman, Agent 47 basically.
This enormous grass field. And the dudes briefing Carlos are like, this field is like 2,000 yards long. There's no terrain features to get the high ground. There's nowhere to even get a shot close. So obviously you're going to have to shoot from the wood line. The problem with that is they're patrolling around this compound 24/7 all day and night, and they're using dogs. So even if you can get close enough to take the shot, they're going to start looking for you and hunting you down with dogs after the fact. And then you're really going to have a problem. You're probably not going to make it out of this. Carlos is immediately like, I'm not taking the shot from that wood line. I'm taking the shot from that grass field. And the advisors are like, what? What are you talking about? To which Carlos is like, that's the last place they'd expect it to come from, so that's where it has to come from. I want you guys to drop me off way over here on the other end of the map. I'll go through these woods, and then I'm gonna low crawl for 3 days, moving 1 foot an hour until I can clear 1,200 yards to get within 800 yards of this villa, and then I'm gonna take the shot and hopefully sneak away.
Hold on, how are you gonna sneak away if you're gonna crawl like that? What about the dogs? This was insane.
To which the advisors are like, I mean, sounds crazy to me, but you're the expert. We came to you for a reason. If that's how you want to do it, go ahead and get it done. Go ahead and grab your boy John Burke. You guys get ready. You're going out first thing in the morning. At which point Carlos informs him he's going out alone on this one. It's too dangerous, and moving that far through that grass field, he needs to be as small as physically possible. So Carlos goes back to his tent, grabs everything he needs. He grabs 1 canteen of water.
Yeah, you don't want companions. Especially that trait basically that gives you more carry weight and like 15% better damage, yeah.
Water, a little bit of food, his rifle, and his Colt 1911 for a backup weapon. And for the first time since he found it, he leaves the white feather there because he doesn't have anybody else there with him to protect, and he wants every advantage he can get. From there he goes, gets in the helicopter, they fly him there, insert him exactly where he wanted.
Yeah, because that white feather has like agility bonus, but it like has negative perception bonus. You don't want that. There's Fallout things, by the way.
At dusk. He maneuvers through the wood line, gets to this field by nighttime, and starts low crawling all night long. And there's still patrols all night long. They're going around with spotlights, walking around, but Carlos only brought one canteen of water because he wanted one canteen on one hip, and he's not just gonna crawl belly down this entire time. He's going to crawl on his side to leave as small of a trail as possible. Carlos is making himself so small and he's moving so slowly under the cover of night that they would literally have to step right on top of him to be able to find him. And according to Carlos, they almost did on several occasions. They got within arm's reach. Fortunately for Carlos, every time the patrols got close, he could hear them goofing off or not taking this job very seriously because he knew that they knew nobody in their right mind would ever try to attack that villa from this enormous field that's being covered by patrols. They'd be coming from that other wood line. So the enemy's guard is down and they're not being very diligent, which is exactly what Carlos wanted. At this point, he starts getting a little bit more confidence that he's actually going to pull this off. Carlos crawls all night long. He makes it 400 or 500.
Wait a minute. So he didn't even... He had a doubt in his mind he might not pull it off. He's about to meet his wife and he agrees with this job knowing it might go south. It's probably going to go south. He's not sure. He doesn't want his buddy there. He wants to go alone. What kind of mentality it takes to do that shit, man? That's insane. See, you need to be mentally strong at an insane level in order to do any of this. Physical ability is important, obviously, but mental is like a whole other level.
100 yards in, and then as the sun comes up, his strategy is to just lay there, not moving, try to sleep the best of his ability while still being alert, and he just doesn't want to move at all. It's too risky in daylight. So that's what he does. He lays there motionless all day long. When the patrols go by and he knows he can get away with it, he'll take a sip of water. Maybe he tries to eat a tiny bit of food. Otherwise, he's just laying there. So obviously,
what if ant colony is there and ants are literally biting on your skin? What if a mosquito bites you? What if something else bites you? What if you suddenly sneeze because something went to your nose? This feels, to my head, this feels so weird. Like, how can somebody even pull this off? He's playing Modern Warfare mission from that Chernobyl mission, basically. He's pioneering a lot of the shit right now.
this sucks, but the plan is it's supposed to suck, so everything's actually going great. But by lunchtime, a vulture, or whatever the Vietnamese equivalent of a vulture in this part of the world, starts circling overhead above
vulture.
Hathcock. To which Carlos is like, shit, what do I do? Do I just keep laying here and let it keep circling? Like, it's not going to get the balls to come up and try to eat me.
Vulture's like, the fuck? Just like that looks like something dead, but might not be dead. I can feel it's dead. What is that? Vulture is confused circling.
I should be fine that way, but then he realizes it's a bunch of army dudes with their guard down, and if they see a vulture circling, one of those dumbasses might just be like, hey, let's go see what animal's dying in the field that vulture sees. So Carlos has to figure out a way to get this vulture to quit circling overhead. Now, he wishes he could just shoot the fucking thing, but obviously that's not an option. So literally the only thing he can do to try to get this vulture off of his trail is to start moving slowly again, but now it's in the daylight, so it's extremely dangerous. But at least he's still pretty far away and he's not up close, so maybe nobody will notice. So that's what he does. He starts inching along again in the daylight, hoping this vulture fucks off, and eventually it does. By then, it's nighttime.
Yeah, because Vulture was confused, and then when he starts to move on, it's alive. I'm not going to do anything with that.
Again, Carlos again crawls all night long, clearing hundreds of more yards. By the time the sun comes up the next day, he's made it a total of somewhere between 900 and 1,000 yards in, meaning he only needs to go 300 to 200 more before he can finally get that 800-yard shot. Luckily, there's no vultures circling overhead today. Unfortunately, he is now being eaten alive by fire ants. In addition to that, he's out of water.
I just said that. I knew this shit was coming. Like, how does that happen in this kind of an open field? Fire ants, that's like, oh, what kind of how is he gonna pull out? Like, oh, fuck me, you're biting the shit out of me, I have to stay still. One fire ant bites me, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I just basically try to throw this shit out, like, what the fuck was that?
He's out of food, he's dehydrated, he's hungry, and he's just laying in this field dressed like a bush, getting baked alive by the sun while fire ants are trying to eat him. And this is the hardest part of the entire mission, the mental game, the suffering of knowing that he's 1,100 yards at most away from his target, and he's taken shots that far before and landed them. He knows that in theory, he could take this shot right now and it could all be over and he could just go back home and get some water, some food, and get these fucking fire ants off of him. At that distance, he could make it, but he can't guarantee it. So he lays there and just continues to suffer the entire day until that night when he...
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I would do the same thing if I were him, which I would never be. I can't do all that shit, crawling, all that, no way. But if I could do all that, and if I'm him, I would do the same shit. Because after doing all that shit, imagine you missing a shot. What was all that for? It's like, you can't miss after all this shit. So yeah, I guess like let's soldier through a bit more, I guess.
He advances forward another 300 to 400 yards. Somewhere between 700 and 800 yards away, he finds this tiny little elevation, this little itty bitty hump of dirt that doesn't even appear on topographical maps. It's so small. And he gets on top of it, and this is going to be where he takes his shot from. The next day, he's watching with a scope, trying to figure out who the general is and get ready to take this shot. And after a while, he starts to figure out a lot of these guys keep going back to the same person, and that same guy keeps pointing, and then these dudes keep going and doing whatever he's pointing at. So clearly, that's got to be the man in charge. That's the general. Carlos gets ready to line up his shot. His bubble of concentration starts forming. He no longer cares that he's dehydrated. He's tired. He's hungry. He has a bunch of fire ant bites. The only thing...
Oh yeah, I didn't even thought of that. No food, very little water. He drank, like dehydrated. What if he get like delirious a bit? How is he gonna take shot? Like this is you need your senses. Sniping is not a joke. You need to be accurate. How is he gonna be accurate?
Thing that exists in the world right now is his crosshairs, his trigger finger, and where that bullet's going in that general's chest. He takes his shot, he racks another round into the gun immediately in case he has to have a follow-up shot because he missed, and as he re-racks it and his scope re-centers on the general, he sees him collapse to the ground, dead. As he's watching this unfold, his bubble of concentration finally bursts as an alarm starts going off, and he realizes, oh shit, this mission isn't over yet, and I gotta get out of here. Just as he's about to slide down the backside of this elevation he's on, he...
Basically, any video game you play, when you do a mission, an alarm plays, and you realize, wait a minute, I have to go all the way back to the start of the map in order to finish. Like, god damn it. He's doing that in real life. Okay, by the way, there's still escape left.
Looks and sees that all of the guards and patrols are running the other direction into the wood line because that's obviously where a sniper would be hiding. Carlos's plan worked. Carlos crawls as fast as he can, gets out of this field, makes it back to the wood line, goes all the way to where he's supposed to have the rendezvous point, but because Carlos had spent the first day crawling as well, he'd taken this shot a lot earlier than anybody had anticipated. So now he's just gotta wait. That's the only option. So he finds himself a nice little hide, conceals himself as good as he can, and he takes a nap until the helicopter's...
That is fucked up, man. People are alarmed. They're gonna look for you. When they go to that wood village, it's not there. They'll try to look for other places. Are you gonna wait it out? Oh, that is so fucked up, man. Maybe you should have waited a bit, but then again, fire ants are biting him left and right. Oh, this is such an insane scenario.
Wake him up when they get there. Same exact thing as last time. They pick him up in the helicopter. Did you get the guy? He's like, yep, I got him. Cool. Thanks, I guess. Take him back to Hill 55. Can't get the fuck out of my helicopter. Still doesn't even know who these guys are. Fuck!
But why doesn't he go like, who the fuck are you, by the way? This is second mission. I think I've earned some credit, your reputation credits. Reveals who the fuck are you. At least they would have said like, okay, we're secret, we can't tell you. At least then by he know like who they are.
This story is also made up and completely ridiculous because Carlos never knew the name of the general and the NVA never reported that they lost a general at this point in time. Okay, one, never trust enemy documentation, especially if they're communist, and double that doubt if it's a lack of documentation that you're referring to. And two, if this was a MACV-SOG mission, which I'm fairly confident it was, it meant that Carlos was flown into Laos or Cambodia, not even realizing it, to take this shot, which means the NVA weren't going to report that they lost a general inside of a neutral territory that they weren't supposed to be inside of anyways, similar to how the US government never reported losing MACV-SOG operatives inside of Laos and Cambodia. And again, to be completely intellectually honest, I cannot stress this enough. I can't prove that this was a MACV-SOG mission. I tried for like a year. But humor me, let's take 2 seconds and just Google it. MACV-SOG Operation 1967, the exact same year that this supposedly went down. MACV-SOG led a mission to eliminate Vietnam's top general by going behind enemy lines.
That's suspicious.
Okay, I can't prove it, but if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. But if you still doubt it, you should consult an expert and maybe see if...
See, in scientific field, this is also a way to prove things, right? Like, easiest example would be, if you think there is a bear in a cave, you can't go inside the bear to check it. You know the bear only has one exit or entrance. How you gonna know it, right? You're gonna put like a lot of like a white powder in front of it, like put the shit there, wait it out, come back and check it if there is like bear print or not. After enough time, how bear works, how bear operate, you know that. And after enough time, if you don't find prints, there is no bear there. You just proven there scientifically without a doubt there is no bear there without even going inside the cave. That type of shit. right? If all things points towards that, if it makes sense the way they act, if this actually happened, like it's corroborated by him, and yeah, if this happened, they act like that, they basically worked in that area, it's problematic, we saw, right? Whatever, yeah. So it basically makes sense. And around this time, around Vietnam, this kind of a spy assassination shit was like pretty strong, because post World War II, people need to understand, people went insane. World War II was so intense, people tried to find all the means and any way of doing anything, both USSR and USA. So there's going to be very, black strip type of shit, right? When nobody knows anything. Even today, we might not know a lot of things. Even the governments themselves might not know they did something because nobody was told up, or like, okay, only I know, I'm not going to report to you up because it's like, black side type of shit. There are many generals and top people who never know something happened, right? So that kind of shit.
If they think it's a duck, and we can do that too. Okay, all the interviews we have recorded of Carlos Hathcock discussing all of this, those interviews were conducted by a man by the name of John Plaster, who was a MACV-SOG operative in the same theater at the same time, that became a sniper and then wrote like 15 books about being a sniper. On top of that, Jim Land, his commanding officer and also a world-renowned sniper, was in multiple interviews after the fact and also never cast any doubt on anything Carlos said ever. So just so we're all on the same page, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and none of the experts at hand doubt its duckliness. It's probably a fucking duck.
Quack, quack. Shoot the duck! Shoot the duck!
I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked and angry. Anyways, so Carlos is back at Hill 55. Basically, at this point, he's got a couple more days of duty, and then it's time for him to pack his shit up and go back home to America. He's home for about a year, and then he gets sent back to Vietnam again in 1969. Now, over the last couple of years, and in part due to Carlos Hathcock himself, being a scout sniper has become much more well-known and much more respected. Because of that, the Marine Corps is actually starting to get scout sniper equipment, and Carlos isn't going to have to do his second deployment with a civilian hunting rifle. He gets issued a Remington 700, chambered in .308, racks up a couple more confirmed kills, bringing his total to 93 confirmed by that ridiculous confirmation criteria.
But hold up, isn't 306 supposed to be better than 308? Has better, what is it called, grain, power, or whatever the fuck you basically see in power scale? I thought it was better. I'm pretty sure somebody told me. I even remember doing some research during like Fallout New Vegas time or something I'm playing like on Go. I'm pretty sure 306 is supposed to be slightly better than 308, Winchester 308, right? I don't know.
With somewhere between 300 and 400 probables. Then one day he gets ready to go out on a mission, does his favorite strategy of linking up with an infantry unit, and then as they move along, at some point he's going to peel off and go do his own thing. And on this particular occasion, he hops inside of an Amtrak because they were mechanized. They're going along, it's an ordinary day, they're bullshitting inside the Amtrak, just doing what guys do, and then all of a sudden, the Amtrak drove over a mine and blew up, and the entire thing is now going up in flames. Carlos is literally on fire, and the other 7 Marines are worse off than him as he starts dragging them outside of this flaming Amtrak one at a time. He gets all 7 of them out, gets himself out, collapses, still on fire, and then a Navy corpsman from one of the other Amtraks runs out, and I don't know how, but they said that he used water from either a puddle or a nearby pond to put Carlos out. Carlos is burnt to a crisp. They medevac him out of there. He goes through the whole medical system, makes his way back to Brookfield Medical Center. From there, he has to get skin grafts using his skin, whatever's left of it, other people's skin, animal skin. Because of the water they used to put the fire out, he ends up getting this weird fungal infection that he's got to battle.
I was about to say that, like, oh god, the water's gonna screw with him. This is one of the biggest issues, like infection and water. Water and infection go hand in hand. That's like life loves water. And infected water, if you do, whenever you're injured and you use infected water, you're basically screwed. Like, it depends, right? If you find medical attention, it's fine, but there is a chance of sepsis. Your body might, get infected so badly, you're screwed basically.
He ends up getting a bunch of different types of staph infections. Then he ends up getting pneumonia, and by the time he fights all these infections, tries to heal from his burns, he's down to 97 pounds. He's in the hospital at Brookfield Medical Center from September of 1969 until January of 1970, and on January 5th, he walks out and returns to active duty. From there, he went on to continue to build and instruct the Marine Corps Scout Sniper.
Yeah, I'm like, how the fuck? I just saw the videos of him talking about this, which means he clearly survived. He was alive after all this. Like, how the fuck is this happening? How did he die? So that videos from the back. No, it's one of the not latest, but it's not during that time. The videos we just saw him talking, right? It's a video in his later life when he's retired. So I'm like, he must have survived, right?
program that expanded into law enforcement and other branches of the US military. He helped create what we know today as modern sniping. Health-wise, he never fully recovered. He was always wearing white cotton undergarments, a long sleeve shirt, and long sleeve pants because his grafted skin was so sensitive that the military uniform would actually chafe it and cause it to bleed. Despite that, he still continued to train the next generation of snipers until in 1975 when he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And again, despite that, he managed to hang on for 4 more years of active duty, continuing to be an instructor. After his retirement in 1979, he became a contractor consulting for the US military and law enforcement agencies for sniping, obviously. He also, at this point in time, picked up a new hobby of going shark fishing because he's Carlos Hathcock, that's why. Then in the
Yeah, he's gonna shoot the shark, I guess. Here's a Winchester, bam. That's how you do it.
1980s, somebody writes a book about him called Marine Sniper, 93 Confirmed Kills. This book is incredibly popular. Carlos goes from being a legend inside of the Marine Corps and the US military to being probably the most famous and well-known sniper in the world. And at this point, people start asking questions like, well, why doesn't this guy have like a bunch of high-ranking medals or the Medal of Honor? Like, why? He seems like he's been underappreciated for what he's done.
Yeah, I guess because it's not a story, like he said, like you can't confirm his kill because that rule, like some official has to be there, which is like absurd. How the fuck is that gonna happen?
So Jim Land, his commanding officer, and a bunch of other people came out of the woodwork to testify to these award committees that Carlos should be getting the Medal of Honor for all the incredible things that he's done. The problem is he was in an experimental unit and they were busy. Nobody was trying to get awards at the time. They were trying to do a job, so there wasn't a ton of documentation. And the other issue, in my opinion, he may or may not have been unknowingly doing operations for MACV-SOG, which at this point in time is still super top secret and the government hasn't admitted even exists yet. And you see this a lot from people from that era not getting the awards that they actually earned because they were a place that the government said they weren't when they earned that award. You have war heroes like Roy Biv.
Yeah, God knows how many James Bond level of or this type of badass people must have been some secret like we saw other things like that, which government can admit, will never admit. Who knows what happened? Basically, even the slogan like you'll never get the respect that you need and whatever, right? Basically, all those like movie, video game shit, which probably, let's be honest, was real, right? A lot of spy shit, a lot of next level shit. They basically saved the world. There might be cases like that as well. Because after watching a lot of electrician videos, I definitely believe there must be some ridiculous story like that nobody will ever hear, right? Because of its secrecy. So there might be many people who are badass like that. We'll never know.
Benavides, who earned the Medal of Honor and didn't get it until 15 years after the fact because he was in Cambodia on a MACV-SOG operation when it happened. So this award appeals process gets drug out for years, and by 1996, Carlos Hathcock is diagnosed with Parkinson's. In combination to his burns, in combination to his MS, he ends up being bound to a wheelchair. In that same year of 1996, he was also retroactively awarded a Silver Star for his courageous actions of dragging those other Marines out of the burning Amtrak. His other incredibly heroic acts would go unrewarded, and in 1999...
Man, what an insane shit. The guy was invincible, untouchable, did all this ridiculous shit, but an armored vehicle screwed him up. If he wasn't in that armored vehicle, he wouldn't get the mine wouldn't have hit him, right? That's an insane thing. Like something supposed to be more protective fucked him up in the end, like his whole life. All these issues came from that.
And 3 years later, he would pass away due to medical complications at the age of 56. So in conclusion, that is the story of White Feather, Carlos Hathcock, the greatest sniper of all time. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out. All right, for every item purchased out of my merch store for the month of August 2024, you're automatically going to get one entry to win this custom Steelhead Outdoors locking cabinet. It's pretty awesome. You can put guns, whatever else you wanted inside of it. Inside's pretty dope too, as you can see.
Basically, this is the thing in post-apocalyptic world you find with a very hard lock. All the goodies.
But yeah, every single item, doesn't matter if it's a koozie, a sticker, a shirt, sweater, any item is one entry automatically, and then there's a free way to enter over on bunkerbranding.com. You can get all the links and everything over thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
How would you like to be remembered?
But a pork roast.
That's an Arkansas man, you know?
That's it.
When you're gone, how would you like to be looked at or remembered? Would you like your legacy?
Just that I did a good job. I did a good job. That's all I want. That's all I want. Be recognized as somebody, Marine, trying to do it.
Yep, there you go. 56, it's not like 70 or 80 like some badass people lived, but at least it's something, right? He didn't directly died in one of his last duties at least. But yeah, last years were like kind of fucked up because of all the disease and things, because of that fucking armored vehicle and hitting a mine. Yeah, that's the thing. Most of the things supposed to protect you screws you up because it becomes a target in the first place, right? It's like, if you were going to like warfield with fully armored up, people will shoot at you more than anything else type of way. It's a weird way to look at it, but still. But yeah, the guy was badass. Basically, did all this video game shit before, back then, basically pioneering things that people use today, right? Sniping and everything, covert type of shit, assassination. He played Hitman as a side quest for, that secret thing. This is so good. Right, well, this was some insane story. Some of the things people question, like, sure, I can see why would you question, but some of the things that even confirmed people question, it's just like people are just hater, aren't they? Because if there was no book published, if he didn't become famous, people wouldn't be questioning this. But because he became famous, like people, I don't believe that. I don't know what's about the world and what's about people's mentality, but sometimes that happens. If somebody doesn't become that famous, is famous enough, people are not going to question. If something becomes too famous for whatever reason, movie, a book, people will question fucking everything. Even if something's like, okay, this is like official record, anybody else you wouldn't question. Only reason you're questioning him because he's famous now. Alright, well, if you like what I said, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.